Welcome to Formula Fanatics, the high-octane sub-series of break-fix podcasts drive-through motorsports news. This is your pit stop for all things Formula One, from breaking headlines and race recaps to insider analysis and paddock buzz. Whether you're a diehard Tifoso, a Red Bull loyalist, or just love the thrill of wheel-to-wheel racing, we've got you covered with up-to-date F1 news delivered at full throttle. Strap in, because the lights are out and we're underway. This is Formula Fanatics.
Oh, Formula One. Hey, Brad, I know how much you don't like the name of this news segment that we have here, but we're still in time to call it What the F1.
I think there's already something called What the F1.
Well, that's what this season is shaping up to be. What the F1? What is going on? It's exciting, but it's not. But it is, but it isn't.
It's fake. It's fake excitement.
Right? Just like the fake turbo boost mushroom. Here we go. Here we go. Woohoo! That is Formula One. It's Mario Kart. It's ridiculous.
It is stupid.
But awesome at the same time. I don't know why.
Is it awesome?
I don't know why. I mean,
the only thing that's awesome about it is Ferrari's doing really well.
Yes.
That's awesome. Red Bull is having some struggles, which is awesome to see, just for a change of scenery. McLaren, where is McLaren?
Dude, I don't know what McLaren is up to. But I can say that big Papa Papaya Zach Brown was just named membership chairman of the IMRC for 2026.
Cool, good for him. Congratulations.
So maybe he's busy doing that. I don't know. He has not been on camera at all, by the way.
Nope.
They don't show him at all. But let's kind of start at the beginning, since you're going there talking about how the teams are doing. By the time people listen to this, Suzuka will be over, but we don't know about it yet because we're just in front of it and, the whole 9 yards. So we'll talk about Suzuka and maybe we'll do some predictions as we wrap out this episode of Formula Fanatics. Let's start with ESPN's predictions for the year because they published those almost just before the Australia race. And I thought it was really funny. They predicted Audi would finish 7th in constructors this year.
Okay.
After the first two races, I'm like, maybe. But they are saying Mercedes 1, Ferrari 2, McLaren 3, Red Bull 4, Haas 5th in constructors, then Alpine, Audi, Racing Bulls, Williams, Cadillac, and Aston Martin.
As it stands right now, with 2 races done, Audi is 8th.
So this isn't too far off. And Haas has been doing pretty well. ESPN is also bullish on Audi, which I think was a misprint. I think it's bullshit on Audi. I don't see it. Let's start with that. I know, just like when we started drive through, we talked about Volkswagen and Audi news. We got to talk about Audi because we can't talk about Cadillac.
Well, where do you think they are? They're not last.
No.
Yeah, they're not last.
Okay, we already figured that out after the first race. The Aston Martin's a turd heap that has major problems.
Yeah.
They got to do better than that.
Next is Cadillac.
Where do they finish?
They have to finish in front of Cadillac, but behind Williams. I think Williams is going to turn it around at some point this season. They're going to get their act together. Carlos hasn't done anything dumb. The problem I see with the Audi is the reliability issue, which they've suffered now. Bortoleto didn't even start one of the races, and then Hulkenberg had to retire early, so they're not getting any points. That's a 0 right there. And even then, if only one of the drivers finishes, they're getting half of whatever pathetic points that they're able to get, if they can even get into the top 10.
They have the same amount of points as Williams right now.
I think Williams stands a better chance.
They have the same amount of points as Williams, who didn't retire cars.
I mean,
it's only 2 races, so it's entirely too early to tell anything, honestly. But
my spidey sense is telling me they're going to be in the bottom 3. They don't have the drivers. They don't have them. And the car is junk, too.
It's not the worst car.
No, it's not. No, we know which one is.
Well, in that argument, then, Audi and Cadillac should automatically be 10 and 11 because they are the new cars and everybody else has had cars. But then there's an argument to be had that everyone's cars are new because these motors are completely different, which is the problem Aston's having where their motor is trash.
I think the problem that Aston is having is Aston and Adrian just keep going down the list. Because I think the problem is the car was designed without the engine in mind, or vice versa. Because I've heard the argument both ways. Honda designed the engine without consulting with Adrian, and Adrian didn't design the car around the motor. So that's why there's this discrepancy and why they don't work together and why it's not smooth and why it's having all these problems and yada, 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 yada.
Everybody's pointing fingers at everybody else.
Well, yeah, they're doing the scarecrow thing, right, from the Wizard of Oz. And the problem there is Big Daddy Warbucks is just sending money. It's like a rudderless ship, right? It's just sort of adrift. And then we hear through the winter that Adrian's suddenly the team principal. He's a well-regarded F1 engineer, and then you put him in charge of a team, and you're asking him to do two jobs now? Is that his own arrogance, or is that their inability that people just walked out and said, I'm not dealing with any of this crap, and maybe they're shorthanded? So what is it? What the heck is going on at Aston? Because if you ask Lance, you're not going to get a straight answer. I mean, have you seen these social media posts where they ask Lance his opinion? It's like, is he a buffoon?
He very well may be an idiot. Very well may be. However, it also very much felt like, at the advice of my counsel, I am pleading the fifth. That very, very much felt those were his answers too. Like, I have been told to just say nothing. I know nothing, and therefore I shall tell you nothing. I mean, what do you want him to say?
It was so cringe to watch. Like, oh my God. And Alonso doesn't want to talk to the press, obviously. And all he talks about is his, apparent nerve damage.
It's a really bad look because Honda, who went from having 4 world championships being the motor that was in the Red Bull, right?
Yeah.
To suddenly be, oh, Honda's motor is trash and it's going to take 2 years to fix.
But people have said that was the same problem when they introduced the Honda at Red Bull too, where they went through some growing pains. And apparently this was also true at McLaren at one point.
But I don't understand then. So we lifted Adrian
Yes.
Newey and a Honda motor to another mark. So it's still Adrian Newey with a Honda motor. So Adrian Newey doesn't understand a Honda motor and Honda doesn't understand what Adrian Newey is going to do with a chassis. Where was the disconnect?
Unless he decided to completely redesign the car.
And very well may have.
And Honda said, here's the motor from the Red Bull, the way it was. You can have it and do whatever you want with it. It just doesn't match up for some reason. Although, to your point, you think Adrian would know better having designed the Red Bull chassis.
So I don't know what's going on over there, other than they're doing very poorly.
They don't know either.
And now 4 months later, Adrian steps down as team principal back to lead engineer. What?
Who knows? I don't know.
It's like clockwork. These last 2 races, Brad, have you noticed? They say Alonso can't go more than like 25 laps. And then apparently he has like core meltdown.
Yeah.
And the car like shakes itself apart. And they make it to like maybe lap 22 and it's like retired, out, gone, like done. And I will say there have been more cars out in these past 2 races than there have been, like, I think all last season. Like, it's insane the number of cars that are just basically falling apart or don't even start the race.
So Audi's doing good then.
Yeah, they only lose 50% of their cars instead of 100% of their cars.
So they're going to be 7th in constructors.
There you go. Right in the middle.
Perfect. We just proved them right.
Okay, riddle me this, Batman. Audi F1 boss Jonathan Wheatley is rumored to replace Adrian Newey at Aston.
I don't know.
What? He's
know.
only been on that job for what, like a minute, and now he's going to Aston?
He's failing up.
Yeah. Depends how big of a check Daddy Warbucks threw his way. Everybody's got a price.
If you're the principal at Audi and you decide to pack it up and go to the worst team in F1, what does that say about Audi? Do you read between the lines on that?
They're not paying enough. They don't have enough money. That's why they're not selling any cars on the back end.
My man reading the tea leaves. I've been saying it. Sales are down at Volkswagen. They can't afford this. They're going to make it 1 year and they're going to have to pull out. And it'll go back to Sauber. Sauber will find somebody else to sponsor the team.
Porsche will step in. Just kidding.
Yeah, okay. It's the same bank account.
It'll be Hyundai.
It'll be BYD.
Oh my God. Ew. I heard about that too. Like, whatever. So if Wheatley is leaving Audi, that means Egon is in charge at Audi right now, right?
Benetto.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
So this is why I say, you asked me earlier why I think Williams is going to do better than Audi. This is why Williams is going to do better than Audi. They've got the same drivers as last year. They basically got the same setup as last year. They're going to do fine because they're just going to be mediocre enough to be better than Cadillac, Audi, and Aston Martin. Meanwhile, Haas is going to pull ahead.
I don't know.
Rumor on the street, Beerman might get a seat at Ferrari.
Whose seat is he going to take?
Sorry, whose seat in Ferrari?
I had read somewhere that he might get even a reserve spot at Ferrari. That's not a bad gig.
Can you be a active driver of one team and a reserve driver of
No,
another?
you'd have to quit Haas and go be the reserve driver, just like Bottas did, where he was the reserve driver at Mercedes.
Bottas did that after 10 years already, or whatever, being in Formula One. I think that would be monumentally stupid of Beerman after his second season to be like, all right, I'm going to stop driving and be a reserve driver on the hopes that Lewis or Charles moves on. Charles is going to retire at Ferrari, most likely. And Hamilton, God knows how long he's going to keep going, especially if he does well this season.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can snip it.
Either way for Lewis, he has a crap season and he leaves, or he gets his 8th and he leaves.
Yeah, but Beerman doesn't need to become a reserve driver to be taken up by Ferrari if they so choose. When the contracts come up for renewal at the funny season towards the end, they can just snipe him there.
But let's just say they want Beerman or they take him on. If this rumor is
No,
true,
they're not going to take Beerman. Why would they take Beerman? Why would an Italian team take another British driver when they have a hotshot rising Italian rookie driver?
Oh, Mercedes is never going to let Antonelli go. Are you kidding me?
For enough money.
Toto will cut off all of his appendages before they give up Kimi to Ferrari.
Because you know who Toto wants? Toto wants Max. Because Toto couldn't get Max when Toto wanted Max.
Max will retire before Toto gets him. I'm sorry. Max will make sure that never happens.
Max, if the Red Bull is a piece of crap, what does he care? He just wants to drive and win.
He did an interview recently that I watched that he basically said there's more to life than doing all this stuff. He goes, when I'm 70 years old, nobody's going to care if I won 4 championships or 5 or 7. He goes, I want to go do other stuff. So he's outright publicly saying that he wants to go do other stuff, which is already evident in his GT3 racing and Verstappen this and the Nurburgring and all that other kind of stuff. I see Verstappen exiting Formula One in the next couple of he'll run out his contract at Red Bull because they're paying him, and when it's over, he's not coming back.
Which is another 4 years.
I thought it was only like to 28.
He has an 8-year contract.
That started like forever ago. I thought it was 2028 and then he was done.
Maybe. So 2 more years.
Toto's never going to get him. It's never going to happen. That's why they invested in Kimi, because that was the whole point. He wasn't going to make the same mistake twice.
Yeah, but it's Kimi's choice to leave.
I mean, yeah.
Not Toto's. So an Italian driver's dream is going to be to drive for Ferrari. So if they give him the opportunity, it's his to leave Toto and Mercedes.
That's true, but Beerman could be the second coming of Nigel Mansell for all we know. I know Hamilton's a Brit, but I'm just saying, like, there were other Brits that drove for Ferrari over the years.
Yes, but how many Italians stood a chance?
Yeah, I mean, how many Italians actually won at Ferrari, though?
That's what I'm saying. How many stood a chance? This Antonelli is probably their best chance to have an Italian in an Italian car on the podium.
Yeah, they said the last time an Italian podiumed in a Ferrari was like Giancarlo Fisichella or something like that, like 20 years ago. And it was like one time or something like that. I was like, okay, whatever. But to actually win the championship, the like last Italian to win the championship, I don't even know. Like, what was that? Like Ascari or something like back in the 50s? It's got to be a long time ago. So anyway, there's a whole bunch of stuff shuffling going on. We're between the second and third race, and we're already shuffling the deck around, and it's all this musical chairs that's already going on. But let's talk about Australia for a second. And Brad, to your point about the racing and how hokey it is, I guess is the word I want to use. You know, we have the new hurry up and coast turbo mushroom way of driving now. They said Australia 2025 last year, if you remember that race, which was a little bit wet and there was some Alonso crashed and some other people crashed, stuff like that. 45 overtakes in that race last year. This year, 120 overtakes.
Artificial.
Sorry, say those numbers again.
There were 45 overtakes last year.
In all of last year.
No. In the Australian GP last year,
Oh.
45. 120 this year.
But it's all like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
It's
Like,
artificial.
I don't know what to say about the racing. Yes. Is it more exciting when you see someone pass someone? Yes.
To someone who doesn't understand what's going on, it can be more exciting.
On what merit did they make the pass? Because like, oh, I passed him. And it's like, okay, well, wait 10 seconds. Oh yeah, I got repassed again. So what was the point?
They're taking the driving out of the driver's hands.
You know what was driving? Not to overlap and segue, but we didn't cover it in the main section. What was driving and not mushrooms was the Nurburgring NLS2 4-hour race where Verstappen was glued at some points to the back of the Audi in his Mercedes, had to work for the pass and be strategic, especially lapping other slower cars and everything. And then when makes a pass, it's like, damn, good move. And there wasn't an immediate retaliation because, oh, he passed and now he's got 50 less horsepower and he's, at the mercy of the Audi to turbo mushroom and go around him. What's more exciting? I don't know. Because you watch them like lap. I say lap after lap. The fucking Nurburgring is how many minute lap? So like
7.
Turn after turn, they're sitting there, glued to each other. Boom, 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 boom. It's like, damn, to sustain that.
That's called racing.
I mean, he got more seat time in that race than he did so far this season in F1.
Yeah. What we see in F1 is not racing. I think Eric has gotten to me. If somebody wants to win a race and overtake, build a better car.
Yes. Thank you. I've been saying it forever. And that's why sports car and endurance racing is so interesting, because within the rules, they're still able to build whatever they want. So the Aston Martin Valkyrie with the V12, or the Toyota with their hybrid setup, and the Porsche with the Audi V8 that they were using, whatever. I'll get yelled at for that one by my Porsche friends. But the point is, they're still able to build within a spec, but it's not a spec series like Formula One is.
But there's BOP.
But here's the problem. If this catches on in Formula One, then it trickles down to other motorsport. And I would hate to see this show up in endurance racing, where now they're all hurry up and coast and pass, because to Tanya's point, they don't need it because there's already action in those races. Can you imagine Daytona like this? It'd be a travesty.
This is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. Some of the regulations and the rules and everything that they create are because some of the bigger teams, Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull, they can afford to engineer anything. And the other teams can't afford to do that and compete.
Right.
Well, my unpopular opinion is, well, if you can't afford to do that and compete, then you should not be in the race. You should not be competing.
I agree with that.
And if the field needs to get smaller, and if the field gets to the point where it's just Ferrari and McLaren and Red Bull and Mercedes, then maybe F1 shouldn't exist.
Oh, you're going out there.
Make room for something else. Or make room for other teams that can't afford it.
Yeah.
Is Rich Energy still out there?
I'll always go back to that. There'll always be room.
But I mean, seriously, why is a team like Williams still kicking around?
You would have thought Williams would have merged with somebody else and created a bigger powerhouse.
It's almost like it's like, yeah, Williams or even like a Sauber. It's like a tradition thing.
Right.
No, if you can't afford to be in F1 anymore, you can't afford to do it and compete without the rules hamstringing the bigger teams. You can't afford to be there.
Which is the Andretti argument. If you have the money to build the team and do it the way you want to do it, and as long as you can pass tech,
then do it.
Like, who cares?
Yeah,
Who cares?
exactly. F1 is a farce right now.
It really is. And you know what's funny is there's mixed reviews from the fans, obviously, on how exciting the racing is. But you listen to the drivers, whether it's Max, whether it's Perez has been pretty outspoken about how it's a joke and they need to change the series. And he's coming at it after a couple of years of not being in the car with sort of, I hate to say fresh eyes, but veteran eyes. And it's like, yeah, this is junk. Like, they need to fix this because they're going to lose the fans. They're going to lose the drivers. People are just going to be like, yeah, this is dumb. Why are we doing this? It's become a little bit too Formula E in some respects, right? I don't know if they're trying to bridge the gap.
Like the announcers can only make it so exciting. The artificial graphics on the screen trying to cover up what's actually going on.
Yeah.
People are going to catch on at some point and just, like you're saying, stop watching.
Well, and if we have to listen to Russell over the radio all the time because he's in the front complaining about everybody behind him, I mean, I'm going to turn it off too.
I don't even watch for who's at the front. I watch to find out exactly how long it takes Lance Stroll to get knocked out.
That is a fun little sub game.
It's like a drinking game, yeah. How many laps does Lance Stroll get?
Well, it's 25. That's it. I mean, the Astons are good for 25 laps and then they're out if they even start.
But does he make it 25?
If they make it 25.
I feel like the drinking game should be you drink the number of drinks, which is the delta of the 25 laps, and how many laps Lance Stroll actually gets.
Well, they said that they weren't even going to start in Australia. They were like just going to park the cars, and they didn't. They actually started the race, but then they retired early, and all that kind of stuff. But even Australia, Hadjar blew a motor. Hulkenberg didn't start. Bortoletto did finish in the top 10. Piastri wrecked on the outlap. Like, what
Yes.
the hell? And the best part of Piastri wrecking on the outlap is they didn't show it until after the race was over. And then you saw it on social media where he like spun out and hit the wall and killed the car. But during the race, you were like, the hell's going on? They just made pretend it didn't even happen. You're just like, Piastri will not be starting the race. And you're like, okay.
So I think what I heard happened, if I remember correctly, was he was overcharged on the battery. And so basically, like, he gunned it unintentionally.
Turbo mushroomed. Yeah.
Yeah, he basically hit the turbo mushroom button, not knowing that the turbo mushroom was like the rapid one that like keeps going, right? For like 10 seconds and not just
Yeah.
like the single mushroom.
The green one.
And the sad part about that race, about Australia, was it came down to pit strategy for Ferrari yet again. They could have done a lot better than they did. They could have had that race, but instead they didn't split the cars under the virtual safety to keep one out and do that whole. They did. It was a mess, and it's just like, here we go again. But what I did come away with in that race was I felt like maybe the Ferraris were so bad last year because they were actually testing this year's car, and everybody's been brought down to their level now. It's more of a level playing field because I mentioned this to Tanya as we were watching. You notice when they go for top speed on the long straightaways, like in Australia and stuff, and the car sort of peters out the same way as the Ferraris did last year. They hit that wall. There's like no more speed left in them. They're kind of dog shit coming out of the corners, just like the Ferraris were last year. And I'm like, I'm wondering if last year's car was a prototype for this year's car. And so if you put that lens, even if that's an artificial lens over it, you could say, wow, they did really good considering the car was not designed for last year's spec. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So I don't know. That's a little bit wishful thinking in retrospect, but still, I feel like the speeds have come down. The cars are slower than they were last year.
Because they're coasting. If they didn't have to coast, they'd put in faster lap times.
So pathetic. It's like
the whole point of racing is to go as fast as you can.
Not anymore. Hurry up and coast. Hurry up and coast.
And Ferrari would be doing better if Mercedes wasn't cheating. Did you hear about that?
Why? Well, what now? The compression thing again? We compressing?
The FIA 6-7. The FIA is investigating Mercedes for illegal front wing closure.
What?
The wing's supposed to close within 400 milliseconds, and there's video footage of the Mercedes wing closing in 800 milliseconds.
Oh.
Giving them an unfair advantage.
Open longer. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So Mercedes, they're gonna get penalized for this. And as soon as Ferrari releases the loop-de-loop wing that they came up with, that'll get protested right away.
That's probably why they haven't used it in an actual race yet.
Yeah, because it's gonna get banned immediately. That's why.
Oh, I forgot to tell you, the team that actually brought this to the FIA's attention
was Ferrari.
Ferrari, of course.
Of course. So they can get their loop-de-loop wing.
Yes. Well, if they can do this, I want a loop-de-loop.
If you're going to allow the wings to stay open longer, and that means they've got somebody analyzing and timing how long the wings, 800 milliseconds, like you can't even blink that. It's like, boom, it's done. But somebody's measured that, and they went to the FIA and protested. And Ferrari is notorious for getting their way when they feel like somebody else is cheating.
Or Ferrari and Red Bull both.
Yeah. All that to say, Kimi, second place in Australia. That was awesome. Verstappen starts 20th and he ends up 6th behind Lando. And to your point about McLaren, Where's our great champion, Lando Norris?
Not on the podium.
Okay.
Ah, one hit wonder.
I think so. And I also think last year was staged. There was some hokey pokey there. Shenanigans. I'm calling it now shenanigans. But the rotating wing, hopefully we'll eventually get to that so that Ferrari can get protested by Mercedes. But Tanya, you brought to light they've got some other tricks up their sleeve.
Yes, apparently they have an extra little wing on the halo bar to help streamline the air around the driver's head.
How long before Mercedes protest that?
I don't
So
know.
this is how Formula One works. You don't get protested if you're losing. But the minute Ferrari wins, this is the thing that Mercedes is going to hang their hat on next and say, well, you don't have the wing that opens and closes too slowly or whatever. You've got this other little piece of carbon
Spoiler.
fiber on the halo.
Yeah.
Right? What a joke. So switching gears to China. Best race I have seen in years was the China Sprint race. Holy crap.
Why?
Even with the turbo mushroom stuff, it was amazing. Like, why aren't all Formula One races 19 laps? It was balls to the wall, go for it, get it done, action. There was a safety car, there were pit stops. Kimi is a freaking superhero. Like, he goes from like worst to first. He suffers a 10-second penalty and still manages to get back up to. I told you guys to watch out for this kid. He's a wonderkind. Last year was just his rookie year. He's getting a feel for it. But this year he's coming out swinging. And then he comes out the next day and he kicks ass and he wins. 19 years old on the podium. Dude, it's amazing.
I really enjoyed the racing between Hamilton and Leclerc. Watching them go back and forth at each other, I thought was fun.
Well, even Leclerc said it was fun at the end.
Yeah. Imagine that, letting them race and the drivers enjoy it and have fun. Who knew?
Yeah, God forbid. So during China, Bortoletto's out, both McLaren's out, Albon's out, Aston's are eventually out, and then Verstappen is out. Like, that's a lot of cars out. Record number of cars like out.
In a dry race. That's a lot of cars in a dry race.
That's what I'm saying, right? Predictions for Japan. What do we think?
Mercedes and Ferrari back at the
Hamilton's
front.
going to win.
You think Hamilton's going to win in Japan?
I'm going with Hamilton. I'm having a lot of fun watching Hamilton kind of do well after last year.
It's going to be between Mercedes and Ferrari at the front.
And we don't care about anybody else.
I mean, it's a crapshoot of everybody else. It's hard to say. Like,
Aston's going to be last.
Aston's going to be last. Cadillac's going to be last.
Yeah.
Audi's going to be in the
Williams.
middle. Audi's
Yeah.
going to be solid middle as long as
Yeah.
they got a car in.
Bottom middle. Let's be real. Bottom middle.
There's 22 cars, so the middle is like 10, 11. That's the middle.
I think Audi's going to get a point.
Okay, here's what's going to happen, okay? I'm going to start from the back. I was just going to say Stroll. I don't need to say anything else. Alonso's going to suffer. He's going to have a seizure from all the shaking. And he's
Alonso will have been in the middle, but will end up at the bottom at some point.
He's going to retire.
He will retire on the 22nd lap because the car can only go 25.
He's going to retire.
The next car out will be Perez. After he hits Bottas, Bottas will make it 3 more turns and the Cadillac will shut off like it did in China. So they're out. Bortlin, that guy, he's going to start from the pit. Hulkenberg will make it somewhere around 11th, and that'll be like the best he'll do. You're going to have, what's the new kid's name?
Lindblad.
Yeah, him and Albin and Hajar, I think, are going to dice it up. They're all going to be kind of stuck together there. And then Liam's going to get mixed in, and that'll be the end of that, like a wrecking ball. The McLarens won't do anything. And to your point, that leaves whatever, Carlos, and who cares? That leaves Ferrari and Mercedes at the end of the day.
And Max is just somewhere in there.
Max is just lost in space. Poor guy. I mean, we know he can drive. I am convinced he's a GOAT for sure, because when you put him in something else, he's amazingly quick.
To go into the Mercedes GT3 car and to have pole and be 1.9 seconds faster ahead on the Nurburgring, and that's not what you do.
Yeah.
Against people that's what they do.
I mean, he's a legend, right? I mean, for sure. But He doesn't have the car underneath of him. He just doesn't. And Ford needs to get their act together quick. That's pretty much the punchline there.
Well, then everybody's saying he's just bitching and moaning about Mario Kart Mushroom because he's not doing well. And it's like one could argue that, but also one could argue the more you see him and how he is, he just says shit. If he's saying it's like Mario Kart, then he would probably say that even if he was in first place.
Yeah.
The fact also stands at China, the motor died. Like he came back in limp mode.
Yeah.
The car was junk. The motor's junk. They need to figure it out.
And when it was junk in Australia too, but what a heroic move to go from last place to be
Like sixth. Yeah.
sixth. And if there had been like one more lap, he would have gotten around Lando.
Yeah, because he's just looking for a parking spot out there. I mean, it's pathetic. But so since we're talking about Max, let's finish out talking about Max. You mentioned the Nurburgring already a couple of times and how he did. What surprises me though, and I find it ironic, Ford is backing him in Formula One, right? You see him everywhere with his Ford stuff and his Red Bull and whatever. How come they didn't give him a Mustang to go run the Nurburgring with?
I don't know because he has gone out and done stuff in the new Mustang. Like he's driven it, but I don't know what the deal is because like when he did the Nürburgring last year, he was in the Porsche and he's also tested the Ferrari.
Were there any Mustangs in the race?
Yes, because it crashed.
Oh, okay.
Or it was crashed into. I forget what happened. It got like punted, I think.
I just think it's weird that his title sponsor, second to Red Bull, didn't give him a car to go do this.
I don't know how it works.
He's got the Red Bull sponsorship. He's out there in the Mercedes
Yes.
in Red Bull livery, which is
Yes.
why I think it's strange that he's not running a Ford.
I don't know how those rules work.
It's weird. Or maybe Toto's involved, like you were saying before, Tanya. He's like, I'll give you a Benz. But it's all for nothing. Poor Max.
It is unfortunately all for nothing because, I mean, the first stint, he was pole. He was first off the line. I missed what happened within the first lap that the Audi got around. It had something to do with draft, I think. The Audi was able to slip around. And then he basically spent the hour glued to his ass the whole time and then got around him. They pitted. He went back out. They didn't change drivers at that point. And then like the Audi changed drivers and then like the time just was stacking at that point. He did come in at some point. They switched drivers again, blah, blah, blah. And then like that was like it after that. I think the gap just kept growing. So they did finish. He got back in at the very end. So he crossed the line. They finished in first. Yay, rah, rah, sis, boom, bah. And then like several hours later, the notice comes out that they were disqualified.
Because Audi protested.
They got tech inspected post impound. I don't know. So apparently there was too many tire changes. And so it's like, huh? They did, I believe, have to do a mandatory 3 stops because they got to change the drivers and everything. But the problem is it actually was whatever happened in qualifying
Oh.
that they used an extra set there. They had the proper number of stops and everything in the actual race, but there was an extra set of tires during the qualifying is what threw them one set extra than they should have used.
You think they would have known that going into the race or somebody would have told them?
Who knows? Ineptitude? I don't know.
Collusion.
I would like to think he wouldn't cheat like that.
Yeah, right? Just to close out on Max, Formula One God, he's moving into sports car and endurance racing, and he has flat out said, despite the fact that his dad does rally, he'll never do it.
It's too dangerous.
Yeah, he says he's not interested in doing rally. It does allude to the fact that he goes out with his dad and they do some practice rally stuff, I guess like on a closed course, and he said it's fun, but he has no desire to go do rally like on a professional level.
He said this similar thing about IndyCar that he won't do that because basically there's too much risk. Also in that it's too crashy. I think he said something along those lines. It's like not worth it to me. But I think the rally one is definitely for sure the risk of a crash into a tree or something like that is not something he's willing to take.
It's one of the few motorsport that is still like highly dangerous where fatalities occur.
Yeah.
I don't want to say on the regular, but they do compared to every other motorsport, which is pretty safe.
I mean, it's interesting to see that he does draw a line somewhere.
Well, he did just have a kid too, though.
Yeah, fatherhood will do that to you.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, on that note, I'm excited to see where the rest of the season goes, and I'm excited to share it with you guys. But it is shaping up Again, I like it, but I don't. But I do, but I don't. It's weird.
Conflicted.
Yeah, I really am. But I guess a couple more races, we'll see where things go, or if we just lock ourselves into a rhythm like we did last year after Suzuka, and it is what it is. So I guess we'll just have to stay tuned for the next one.
Mhm.
The Drive-Thru is our monthly news episode and is sponsored in part by organizations like CollectorCarGuide.net, Project Motoring, Garage Style Magazine, the Exotic Car Marketplace, and many others. If you are interested in becoming a sponsor of the Drive-Thru, look no further than www.motoringpodcast.net. Click About and then Advertising. Thank you again to everyone that supports the Motoring Podcast Network, Grand Touring Motorsports, our podcast Break Fix, and all the other services we provide.